I learned that on a rainy Tuesday afternoon when I heard my own wife quietly planning her life after my funeral, while I was still breathing in the next room. 3 weeks earlier, my doctor had sat across from me with tired eyes that told the story before he even spoke. The cancer had spread faster than anyone expected. Treatments were no longer helping. He gently explained that I probably had only days, maybe a few weeks, left. I remember nodding like I understood, but the words didn't feel real. You spend your whole life believing tomorrow belongs to you. Then one stranger in a white coat tells you tomorrow might not come. After that appointment, my wife, Linda, insisted we turn the guest room downstairs into my bedroom. She said climbing the stairs would be too hard on me. She smiled while saying it, kissed my forehead, and tucked blankets around my shoulders every night. She told our neighbors she wanted me to be comfortable. Welcome to a new video. I hope you'll enjoy the story. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks. Now let's get back to the story. Everyone praised her for being such a devoted wife. I believed every word. At least, I did until that Tuesday. The rain tapped against the windows while I rested with my eyes closed. My medicine made me sleepy, but not asleep. I heard footsteps in the hallway followed by the front door opening. Linda whispered, "He's resting." Another voice answered. It belonged to her son, Brandon. Linda had raised Brandon alone before we married nearly 18 years earlier. I never had children of my own, so I treated him like family. I paid for his college when he changed majors twice. I helped him buy his first house after the bank turned him down. When his landscaping business nearly failed, I covered the payroll because I didn't want his employees losing their jobs. I never once asked for that money back. Their voices drifted closer to my room. Did he sign the new papers? Brandon asked. Not yet, Linda replied. He's getting weaker every day. Something about her tone made the hairs on my arms stand up. Brandon sighed. We can't wait forever. Then she laughed. It wasn't loud. It wasn't cruel. It was worse. It was relaxing. Just act sad a little longer, she said. Everything will belong to us soon. My heart felt like someone squeezed it in their fist. For a moment I wondered if the medication was making me imagine things. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe there was another explanation. Then Brandon spoke again. What about the cabin? We'll sell it. And the company shares? We'll cash those too. Franklin won't know the difference by then. Neither of them sounded sad. Neither of them sounded worried. They sounded like people discussing what groceries to buy. I stayed perfectly still. Years of running construction projects had taught me something important. The first person to lose control usually loses everything else too. If they believed I was asleep, they would keep talking. I've already spoken with Mr. Ellis, Linda continued. That name caught my attention. Harold Ellis had been our family attorney for almost 15 years. He says once Franklin signs the updated documents, everything becomes simple. Brandon chuckled. I knew marrying an older man would pay off eventually. Neither of them corrected the other. I wanted to jump out of bed. I wanted to scream. Instead, I counted my breaths. 1, 2, 3. The conversation continued for another minute before they walked toward the kitchen. Only after the house became quiet did I slowly sit up. The movement sent pain through my ribs, but another pain hurt much more. The woman who held my hand during doctor's appointments. The man I had treated like my own son. They weren't waiting beside me because they loved me. They were waiting for me to disappear. I looked toward the dresser where framed family photos stood in perfect rows. Vacations in Florida. Christmas mornings. Backyard barbecues. Smiling faces that suddenly looked like strangers. Then another thought hit me. If they were already talking to Harold Ellis. If they were already preparing documents. How long had this been happening? That evening, while Linda cheerfully brought me chicken soup and asked if I needed another blanket, I smiled back just enough to make her believe I suspected nothing. Inside, my mind had already made a decision. I wasn't going to spend whatever time I had left wondering. I was going to find the truth. And there was only one person in America I still trusted enough to help me uncover it. That night I barely slept. The pain from my illness came and went, but something else kept me awake. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Linda's calm voice again. Just act sad a little longer. Those words echoed through my head louder than the rain outside. Around 6 the next morning, Linda came into my room carrying oatmeal and coffee. She smiled the same gentle smile she had worn for years. "Good morning, sweetheart," she said. "How are you feeling today?" "I've had better mornings," I answered with a weak grin. She set the tray on my lap and touched my shoulder. "I'll call Dar Patel later. Maybe he can adjust your medicine." Her concern looked real. That was the hardest part. If I hadn't overheard her conversation, would have believed every word. After breakfast she left for the grocery store. I waited until I heard her SUV back out of the driveway before reaching for my cell phone. There was only one person I trusted enough to call. "Sam," I said when he answered. A deep voice filled the line. "Frank? Is everything all right?" Samuel Brooks and I had been friends for 43 years. We met on a construction site in Cleveland when we were both young project managers trying to prove ourselves. He later became a certified public accountant and eventually worked with businesses all over Ohio. Even after retiring, he stayed sharp. Numbers never lied to Sam, and neither did people for very long. "I need your help," I said quietly. His voice changed immediately. "Tell me where you are. I'll be there." 3 hours later, Sam parked his old blue pickup down the street instead of pulling into my driveway. That was exactly what I expected him to do. He knew this wasn't an ordinary visit. I watched from my bedroom window as he walked slowly toward the house carrying a small paper bag from a local bakery. Anyone watching would think he was simply bringing pastries to an old friend. Linda had not returned yet. I unlocked the front door before he knocked. The moment he stepped inside, he looked at my face for several seconds. "You look tired," he said. "I am." "No," he replied softly. "Not from cancer." I nodded. Something happened. We sat in the living room where I told him everything I had heard. I repeated every sentence as carefully as I could remember it. Sam never interrupted. When I finished, he folded his hands together. "Frank," he said, "have you signed anything recently?" I thought for a moment. "Linda brought me several insurance papers last week. She said they were hospital forms. Did you read them?" I tried. "But my eyesight has been blurry because of the medication." She pointed to where I needed to sign. Sam frowned. "Do you still have copies?" "I don't know." He looked around the room. "Then that's the first thing we need to find." Before we could continue, we heard a garage door opening. Linda was home. Sam immediately smiled and raised the bakery bag. I figured my oldest friend could still eat a cinnamon roll. Linda walked inside carrying grocery bags. "Sam! What a nice surprise." She hugged him warmly. "I didn't know you were coming." "I was nearby," he replied casually. "Thought I'd check on Frank." She thanked him for visiting, but I noticed something small. Very small. The moment Sam mentioned helping me organize some old business records, to keep Frank busy, Linda's smile disappeared for less than a second. Then it returned. "Oh," she said. "There's really no need for that. He gets tired so easily." "I won't overdo it," Sam answered. I insist, Linda replied. Her answer came too quickly. Too firmly. Sam looked at me. Maybe just one box today. Linda hesitated. Finally she forced another smile. If Franklin feels up to it. After lunch she left again, saying she had a hair appointment. The second her car disappeared, Sam and I walked to my home office. Most of my business files had been moved into neat storage boxes months earlier. At first everything looked normal. Then Sam opened the file cabinet beside my desk. It was locked before, I said. It isn't now. Inside, several folders were missing. The empty spaces were easy to see. Sam checked the labels. Property deeds. Another gap. Investment accounts. Another. Trust documents. My stomach tightened. Someone hadn't just looked through my papers. Someone had carefully removed the most valuable records. Sam slowly closed the drawer. Frank, he said quietly, this didn't happen by accident. I leaned against the desk, suddenly feeling weaker than I had all week. If Linda took them. We don't know that yet. But someone did. Yes. He looked directly into my eyes. And whoever took them already knew exactly what they were looking for. Just then my phone buzzed. It was a text message from an unknown number. There were only 9 words. Don't sign anything else until we speak. Trust no one. Neither Sam nor I recognized the number. But one thing was suddenly clear. Someone else knew something was terribly wrong. And somehow, they were trying to warn me. I stared at the message for a long time. Don't sign anything else until we speak. Trust no one. There was no name. No explanation. Just those 9 words. Sam read the message twice before handing the phone back to me. Do you know the number? He asked. I shook my head. I've never seen it before. Then don't answer yet. I slipped the phone into my pocket, but my mind wouldn't let the message go. Whoever sent it knew I was being asked to sign papers. That wasn't something many people should have known. Sam looked toward the front window. Let's keep moving. We don't know when Linda will be back. We searched the office more carefully. Most of the cabinets looked untouched, but one small safe hidden behind a framed photo caught my eye. I haven't opened that in months, I said. I entered the code. The door clicked open. Inside were my passport, my birth certificate, and a few old family photographs. But something important was missing. My original will, I whispered. Sam looked inside the safe himself. Are you certain it was here? I put it here after I signed it 5 years ago. He slowly closed the safe. So now we know 2 things are missing. My will. And several financial files. Neither of us said anything for a few seconds. The silence spoke loudly enough. Just then my phone vibrated again. It was the same unknown number. This time it wasn't a text. It was a call. Sam nodded. Put it on speaker. I answered. Hello. There was a short pause. Then an older woman's voice spoke quietly. Mr. Hayes? Yes. My name is Grace Monroe. I worked for Harold Ellis until I retired last month. I exchanged a quick look with Sam. Harold Ellis. Our attorney. I don't have much time, Grace continued. Please don't tell anyone we're speaking. What is this about? I found something that didn't feel right before I left the law office. My heart began beating faster. What did you find? I can't explain everything over the phone. Someone has been asking questions about your estate for several months. Who? I'm afraid I can't say until we meet. Why not? Because I don't know who I can trust anymore. The line became quiet again. Finally she spoke once more. If you're willing, meet me tomorrow morning at Riverside Park. 10 o'clock. Near the old fountain. Before I could ask another question, she added one last sentence. And whatever you do, don't sign any documents from Mr. Ellis. The call ended. Sam let out a slow breath. Well, he said, that's not something you hear every day. What if it's a trap? It could be. What if she's telling the truth? Then we need to hear her. That evening Linda seemed happier than usual. She made my favorite meatloaf for dinner and even suggested we watch an old Western movie together. Every smile she gave me now felt different. Not because her smile had changed. Because I had. After dinner she sat beside my chair. Oh, I almost forgot, she said. Harold Ellis is stopping by tomorrow afternoon. I kept my face calm. Really? He has a few papers that need your signature. My stomach tightened. What kind of papers? Oh, nothing exciting, she answered with a laugh. Just making sure everything is organized. Exactly what the text message had warned me about. I forced a tired smile. If I'm feeling up to it. She squeezed my hand. It'll only take a minute. Later that night, after Linda went to bed, Sam and I spoke quietly on the phone. We need to meet Grace first, he said. And then? If what she says matches what you've been seeing, we call another attorney. You think Harold's involved? I don't know yet. Sam paused. But honest lawyers don't usually have retired employees secretly warning clients. The next morning I told Linda I wanted some fresh air before Harold arrived. She seemed surprised. You haven't wanted to leave the house in days. I just want to sit outside for a while. She offered to come with me. I quickly shook my head. I'd like a little time alone. She hesitated but finally agreed. At 9:30 Sam picked me up in his truck. Instead of driving straight to Riverside Park, he circled the neighborhood twice. What are you doing? I asked. Making sure nobody's following us. 10 minutes later we parked near the old stone fountain. The park was peaceful. Children played on swings. An elderly couple fed ducks near the pond. Nothing seemed unusual. Then I noticed a woman in her 70s sitting alone on a bench, holding a blue folder against her chest. When she saw me, she stood up. You must be Franklin Hayes. I am. I'm Grace. She looked around the park before speaking again. I brought copies because I was afraid the originals would disappear. She handed me the blue folder with trembling hands. Inside were documents with my name printed across the top. At first they looked ordinary. Then I reached the final page. My signature was there. Perfectly written. Only one problem made my blood run cold. I had never signed that document. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I stared at the page over and over. My name was written exactly the way I always signed it. Franklin R. Hayes. The letters curved the same way. Even the small line under the F looked right. But I knew one thing for certain. I had never seen this document before. I didn't sign this, I whispered. Grace nodded slowly. I was hoping you would say that. Sam leaned closer and carefully read the first page. This transfers voting control of Franklin's company shares to Linda Hayes if he's declared medically unable to manage his affairs. He looked at me. Frank, if this document were accepted as real, Linda wouldn't have to wait for your estate. She could start making decisions immediately. I turned to another page. There were more signatures. Harold Ellis had signed as the attorney. A witness had signed. Everything looked official. Only it wasn't. When did this appear? Sam asked. Grace folded her hands tightly. About 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks. She nodded. I was organizing client files before retirement. I noticed 2 versions of Mr. Hayes's estate folder. 2. I asked. One had the papers I remembered. The other contained new documents I had never prepared. Did you ask Mr. Ellis about them? I did. What did he say? Grace looked down at the ground. He told me I was getting old and forgetting things. She gave a small, sad smile. I've worked in law offices for 42 years. I know the difference between forgetting something and seeing something new. Sam asked the question that had been bothering both of us. Why didn't you report it? Grace's eyes filled with regret. I wanted proof first. Before I found any, I retired. A week later I learned someone had cleared out my office. So you made copies? She nodded. I kept copies at home because something didn't feel right. I slowly closed the folder. What else is in here? Grace pointed to the remaining pages. There are emails, meeting notes, and billing records. Sam opened the file again. The billing records showed several private meetings between Linda and Harold Ellis. The dates caught my attention. 3 meetings had happened before my doctor told me I was dying. That made no sense. If Linda had been planning estate changes before my diagnosis, then this wasn't a reaction to my illness. It had started earlier. Much earlier. My stomach twisted. She was planning all this before anyone knew how sick I was. Sam looked serious. That's what it appears. Grace quietly added, there was something else. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small notebook. I used to write reminders for every client meeting. She opened to a page marked with a yellow note. I couldn't remember why this meeting seemed unusual. She handed me the notebook. One sentence was underlined. Client requested urgent transfer before husband changes his mind. No names. Just that sentence. But the date matched one of Linda's meetings. I looked up. Grace, are you sure this note refers to Linda? She nodded. I remember because she came alone. Mr. Ellis asked me not to schedule any other appointments during that hour. Sam rubbed his chin. This is becoming much bigger than family arguments. Before anyone could speak again, Grace suddenly froze. Her eyes moved toward the parking lot. That's him. Who? The man who came to the office several times. Sam and I turned. A dark SUV had just parked across the street. A man wearing sunglasses stepped out and looked around the park. He wasn't walking toward the playground. He wasn't heading for the pond. His eyes were searching. Searching for us. Grace's voice shook. I've seen him before. Where? Outside Mr. Ellis's office. Sam quietly took the folder from my hands. We're leaving. We stood and walked toward Sam's truck without running. I wanted to look back. I didn't. When we reached the truck, Sam locked the doors before starting the engine. The SUV stayed where it was. The man never approached us. He simply watched. Only after we had driven several blocks away did anyone speak. I don't like this, Sam said. Neither do I. Grace looked out the window. I never thought it would go this far. Back at my house, we agreed on one thing. The blue folder couldn't stay there. If someone searched my office again, they would find it. Sam offered to keep every document in his home safe. Before leaving, Grace looked at me with kind but worried eyes. Mr. Hayes. Please, I said. Call me Frank. She smiled. Frank, there is one more thing you should know. What is it? I overheard Mr. Ellis say something the day before I retired. What did he say? She took a deep breath. He said, once the medical declaration arrives, everything else will fall into place. Medical declaration. The words echoed in my mind. Someone wasn't just waiting for me to die. Someone was waiting for a doctor to officially declare that I could no longer make my own decisions. And suddenly, my illness no longer felt like the only thing threatening my life. It felt like the center of a plan that had been quietly unfolding for months. The drive home felt much longer than usual. I looked out the window as neighborhoods passed by, but I hardly noticed them. My thoughts kept returning to one question. How many people were involved? When I first overheard Linda and Brandon talking, I believed it was simply greed. I thought they were waiting for me to die so they could inherit my money. Now it was different. There were secret meetings. Missing documents. A signature that wasn't mine. And a lawyer who seemed to know much more than he should. This wasn't just about an inheritance anymore. Someone had been building a plan piece by piece, hoping I would never discover it. When Sam parked outside my house, he turned to me before I opened the door. Remember what we agreed on? I nodded. I act normal. And you sign nothing. No matter what. He handed me a small envelope. If anything happens, call me immediately. Inside was the business card of an attorney named Rebecca Sloan. I've known Rebecca for years, Sam explained. She's honest, careful, and she doesn't scare easily. I slipped the card into my wallet. I hope we won't need it. Sam gave me a sad smile. I hope I'm wrong too. As I walked inside, Linda hurried toward me. There you are, she said. I was getting worried. I just needed some fresh air. She looked closely at my face. You seem tired. I am. That part wasn't a lie. She helped me into my favorite chair before bringing me a glass of water. Then she said the words I had been expecting. Harold Ellis called. I kept my voice calm. Oh. He'll be here in about 30 minutes. My heart beat a little faster. So soon. He wants to make sure everything is taken care of. Everything. That word suddenly sounded much heavier than before. Half an hour later, a black sedan stopped in the driveway. Harold Ellis stepped out carrying a leather briefcase. He looked exactly as he always had, gray suit, polished shoes, silver hair neatly combed. If I hadn't known what Grace had shown me, I would have trusted him without question. He smiled warmly as he entered. Frank, it's good to see you. You too, Harold. He sat across from me while Linda quietly poured coffee for everyone. For a few minutes we talked about the weather, baseball, and old friends. Then Harold opened his briefcase. I've prepared a few updates. He placed several papers on the coffee table. Nothing complicated. I looked at the first page. It was filled with legal language. Tiny letters. Long sentences. Exactly the kind of document someone in poor health would struggle to read. Harold pointed to the last page. If you'll sign here, we can get everything filed. I smiled weakly. My eyes haven't been very good lately. No problem, he replied. I've already reviewed everything. I'm sure you have. Linda gently placed a pen in my hand. Just like the hospital forms. I held the pen for a moment. Then I slowly set it back on the table. I think I'd like another opinion first. The room became completely quiet. Harold blinked once. I'm sorry. I'd like another attorney to look these over. His friendly smile became smaller. Frank, that's really unnecessary. Maybe. But I would feel better. Linda quickly joined the conversation. Honey, you've trusted Harold for years. I still do. It was a careful answer. Not a complete answer. Harold folded his hands. May I ask why you've suddenly changed your mind? I looked directly at him. Because these papers seem important. He watched me for several long seconds. Then he slowly gathered the documents. Of course. His voice remained calm. We can do this another day. He stood, shook my hand, and walked toward the front door. Just before leaving, he turned back. Frank. Yes. Time isn't something either of us can control. Then he smiled again and left. The words sounded polite. But somehow they also felt like a warning. That evening Linda hardly spoke during dinner. She kept looking at her phone. Around 9 o'clock she told me she was going upstairs early. I have a headache. I hope you feel better. She kissed my forehead and left the room. 10 minutes later I quietly walked into the hallway. From the bottom of the stairs, I could hear her talking on the phone. She didn't know I was listening. No, she whispered sharply. He refused. A pause. I know. Another pause. I'll handle it. Then came the sentence that made my blood run cold. We may have to move faster than we planned. The call ended. I quietly returned to my bedroom before she came downstairs. Less than a minute later my phone vibrated. It was Sam. I just heard from Grace, he said without even saying hello. What happened? She remembered one more thing. What? The medical declaration Harold mentioned. Yes. It wasn't supposed to come from your cancer doctor. I frowned. Then where? Sam's voice became very quiet. From a different physician. I sat up straighter. But I've never seen another doctor. I know. There was a long silence. Then Sam spoke the words that changed everything. Frank. I think someone may be trying to legally declare you mentally incapable of making your own decisions. I felt a chill run through my body. If that happened, I wouldn't just lose my money. I could lose control of my entire life. I didn't sleep at all that night. Every sound in the house made me wonder what was happening while I lay in bed. I kept thinking about what Sam had said. Someone might be trying to convince a court that I was no longer able to make my own decisions. If that happened, it wouldn't matter what I wanted. Someone else could decide where I lived. Someone else could control my bank accounts. Someone else could sell my business. Someone else could even decide which doctors treated me. The cancer had already taken away much of my strength. I wasn't about to let anyone take away my voice too. Early the next morning, Sam picked me up before Linda woke up. We drove straight to the office of Rebecca Sloan, the attorney whose card he had given me. Her office was in a quiet brick building in downtown Columbus. It wasn't fancy, but it felt organized. Every file was neatly stacked, and every desk was clean. Rebecca greeted us herself. She was in her early 50s, with short brown hair and calm eyes that reminded me of a teacher who never rushed to judge anyone. Mr. Hayes, she said, shaking my hand. Sam has told me a little, but I'd like to hear everything from you. For nearly an hour, I told her the whole story. I described my doctor's diagnosis. I repeated the conversation I overheard between Linda and Brandon. I explained the missing documents, the forged signature, the meetings with Harold Ellis, and the warning from Grace. Rebecca listened without interrupting. When I finished, she opened the blue folder Grace had copied. She examined every page carefully. Finally, she looked up. If these documents are fake, someone has committed serious fraud. Can we prove it? I asked. We can try. She picked up the page with my forged signature. The first step is simple. What is it? We compare this signature with verified originals. She smiled slightly. People think copying a signature is enough. It usually isn't. I felt the first small bit of hope I had felt in days. So there may be mistakes. There almost always are. Rebecca then surprised me with another question. Frank, when was the last time you reviewed your medical records? I haven't. Have you requested copies? No. She nodded. I want them. Why? Because if someone is trying to claim you're mentally unable to manage your affairs, we need to know exactly what your doctors have written. That hadn't even crossed my mind. She continued. I also want records from every doctor you've supposedly visited during the last year. I've only been seeing Dr. Patel. Rebecca looked directly at me. Let's make sure that's true on paper. By noon, her assistant had submitted requests for my medical records and legal files. Then Rebecca leaned forward. Until we know more, I want you to change one thing. What? Never stay alone with anyone asking you to sign papers. I nodded. And one more thing. She slid a small digital recorder across the desk. Keep this with you. I looked at it. In Ohio, there are legal considerations around recording conversations, so don't use this casually. Before making any recordings, we'll make sure we follow the law. For now, keep detailed written notes of every conversation, every visitor, and every document anyone asks you to sign. I slipped it into my pocket. I understand. When I returned home that afternoon, Linda was sitting at the kitchen table. She looked upset. Where have you been? Out. Out where? I met an attorney. The color faded from her face for just a second. You hired another lawyer. I just wanted some advice. She forced a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. Frank, don't you trust me? That question hurt more than I expected. I remembered our wedding day. I remembered the promises we had made. I remembered believing every one of them. I want to trust everyone, I answered quietly. But this is too important. She stood up so quickly her chair scraped across the floor. After everything I've done for you? I didn't say you've done anything wrong. You didn't have to. She walked upstairs without another word. An hour later, Brandon arrived. He usually called before visiting. This time he didn't. He knocked once before letting himself in. Hey, Frank. Hello, Brandon. He looked uncomfortable. I heard you met with another lawyer. The news was traveling fast. Too fast. I did. He sat across from me. I just don't understand why. I wanted another opinion. He sighed. You know Mom is already under enough stress. I stayed quiet. He leaned closer. Please don't make this harder for her. Before I could answer, my phone rang. It was Rebecca. I've received the first batch of your medical records, she said. Did you find anything? Yes. Her voice was calm, but serious. There is a consultation report from a neurologist. I frowned. A neurologist? According to these records, you were examined 2 months ago for possible memory loss. My heart skipped a beat. I've never met a neurologist. I was afraid you might say that. She paused before adding one final sentence. Frank, someone appears to have created a medical history that doesn't match your life. And if we don't stop this quickly, those records could be used to convince a judge that you're no longer capable of protecting yourself. The word stayed with me long after I hung up the phone. Someone had created a medical record that said I had memory problems. But I had never met that doctor. I had never walked into that office. I had never taken those tests. Brandon watched my face carefully. Everything okay? He asked. I slipped the phone back into my pocket. It was just my attorney. He gave a nervous smile. I hope she didn't fill your head with strange ideas. I looked at him for a moment. The little boy I had once taught to ride a bicycle was gone. The man sitting across from me looked worried, but it wasn't the kind of worry you feel when someone you love is sick. It was the worry of someone afraid that a plan was falling apart. I just want the truth, I said. He stood up. You already have it. Without another word, he walked out. That evening I packed a small overnight bag. I wasn't running away. Rebecca had suggested that, until we understood who was involved, it would be safer if I stayed somewhere Linda didn't expect. Sam insisted I stay at his house. It's only for a few days, he said. We need time. I agreed. When Linda returned from shopping, I told her I wanted to spend the weekend with Sam. She looked shocked. Now. I need a change of scenery. But your medicines. I've already packed them. She tried to convince me to stay, but I calmly refused. For the first time since my diagnosis, I watched fear appear in her eyes. Not sadness. Fear. That told me more than words ever could. Sam's house was quiet. After dinner, Rebecca joined us with a large folder. I've had a busy afternoon, she said. She spread several papers across the dining room table. The neurologist whose name appears in your records really exists. So he examined me? I asked. No. I frowned. What do you mean? I called his office. And? They have no video, no check-in record, and no insurance claim showing you were ever physically there. Sam smiled for the first time all day. That's good. Rebecca nodded. But there is something else. She handed me another paper. This is the doctor's statement. I read it carefully. The neurologist confirmed that the report in my medical file had not been written or signed by him. Someone had copied his name. Someone had forged his medical report. I slowly lowered the page. So whoever did this didn't just fake legal papers. Rebecca nodded. They also created false medical records. Is that enough for the police? It certainly gets their attention. For the first time in days, I felt hope. Real hope. But Rebecca wasn't finished. There was one more surprise. She opened another folder. I hired a forensic document examiner. A handwriting expert. Exactly. She smiled. He compared your genuine signatures with the forged ones. And? The fake signature is very good. My heart sank. But. She tapped the report. The person who copied it made one mistake. What kind of mistake? Rebecca placed two enlarged photographs side by side. This is your real signature. I looked closely. Then she pointed to the forged version. Whoever copied your signature copied the way it looked. I nodded. But they couldn't copy the pressure. I looked confused. The pressure? When you sign naturally, your pen presses harder on certain letters and lighter on others. She smiled. That's something people can't easily imitate. So the expert can prove it? He believes so. Sam leaned back in his chair. That's exactly what we needed. Rebecca wasn't smiling anymore. Not quite. What do you mean? She slid one final paper toward me. This afternoon Harold Ellis officially filed a petition with the probate court. I felt my stomach tighten. What petition? She answered quietly. To appoint Linda Hayes as your emergency guardian. The room became silent. I looked at the date. It had been filed that morning. Only hours after I refused to sign Harold's papers. So they moved ahead anyway. Rebecca nodded. They're moving faster because they know you're asking questions. Sam folded his arms. Can we stop it? Yes. How? Rebecca looked directly at me. By showing the court that you're mentally competent and that the evidence against you is false. When is the hearing? She took a slow breath. 3 days from now. 3 days. After everything I had built over a lifetime. After working 40 years. After trusting the people closest to me. My future would now depend on what happened inside one courtroom. As I sat there, I made myself one quiet promise. I wasn't walking into that courtroom as a dying man waiting to lose everything. I was walking in as the owner of my life. And for the first time since hearing Linda whisper those terrible words, I believed the truth finally had a chance to win. 3 days can pass very slowly when you know your whole future depends on them. Rebecca used every hour wisely. She gathered my real medical records from Dr. Patel. She collected statements from the neurologist whose name had been used without permission. The handwriting expert finished his report, explaining in simple terms why the signature on the estate papers could not have been mine. Grace signed an affidavit describing what she had seen while working for Harold Ellis. Sam organized years of business records showing that I had continued making clear financial decisions right up until my cancer diagnosis. By the morning of the hearing, we had a thick stack of evidence. I was still weak from the cancer, but my mind felt clearer than it had in weeks. The courthouse in downtown Columbus was busy when we arrived. Rebecca carried 2 heavy binders. Sam walked beside me, making sure I didn't lose my balance. Grace was already waiting near the entrance. She smiled when she saw me. "I'm glad you came," she said. "So am I." A few minutes later, Linda and Brandon walked through the front doors with Harold Ellis. None of them looked surprised to see me. Harold nodded politely. "Good morning, Frank." "Good morning." Linda avoided my eyes. Brandon folded his arms and stared at the floor. Inside the courtroom, the judge greeted everyone and explained that the hearing would determine whether I needed an emergency guardian to handle my personal and financial affairs. Harold stood first. He spoke calmly. He told the judge that my illness had made it difficult for me to manage my business and understand legal documents. He claimed Linda was only trying to protect me during my final days. When he finished, Rebecca stood. "Your Honor," she said, "this case is not about protecting Mr. Hayes. It is about taking control away from a man who is fully capable of making his own decisions." She handed the judge the handwriting report. Then she presented the neurologist's sworn statement. Finally, she submitted Grace's affidavit and copies of the questioned estate documents. The judge read quietly for several minutes. Then he looked toward Harold. "Counselor Ellis, can you explain why a medical report appears to bear the signature of a physician who states he never wrote it?" Harold's face lost its confidence. "I would need time to review that." Rebecca immediately responded. "And while reviewing it, perhaps Mr. Ellis can also explain the forged estate documents and the missing original will." The courtroom became very quiet. The judge turned to me. "Mr. Hayes, would you please come forward?" I slowly walked to the witness stand. He asked me simple questions. My full name. My birthday. The names of my businesses. The value of my company. The names of my doctors. I answered every question without hesitation. Then he smiled kindly. "Mr. Hayes, do you understand why you're here today?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Please tell me." "Because someone wants the court to believe I can't make my own decisions." "And can you?" "Yes." He nodded. "I believe you've made that very clear." After a short recess, the judge returned with his decision. The petition for emergency guardianship is denied. I closed my eyes for just a moment. A weight I had been carrying finally lifted. But the judge wasn't finished. He continued, "The evidence presented raises serious concerns regarding possible fraud, forged legal documents, and false medical records. I am referring this matter to the appropriate authorities for further investigation." Linda lowered her head. Brandon looked pale. Harold quietly gathered his papers without saying a word. Outside the courtroom, no one celebrated. The victory didn't feel loud. It felt peaceful. Rebecca smiled. "You protected your rights." "No, I answered. All of you helped me protect them. Over the next several months, the investigation confirmed what we had feared. The forged documents and false medical records became part of a criminal fraud investigation. Harold Ellis lost his license to practice law. Linda and Brandon reached legal settlements regarding property and financial claims, and they were held responsible for their roles according to the evidence gathered during the investigation. As for me, I rewrote my will with Rebecca's help. This time, every page was read aloud before I signed it. I donated part of my estate to a local cancer support center that helped families facing the same battle I was fighting. I created scholarships for young people entering the construction trades. I also made sure Sam and Grace knew how thankful I was for their courage. My illness didn't disappear. The doctors had still been right about one thing. My time was precious. But they had been wrong about another. They thought I only had days left. Months later, I was still here, enjoying quiet mornings on the porch with a cup of coffee, watching the sun rise over the trees. Cancer taught me that life can end sooner than we expect. Betrayal taught me that trust should never be given blindly. But friendship taught me something even greater. One honest friend who stands beside you when the world falls apart is worth more than all the money anyone could ever inherit. And that was the greatest part of my story that no one could ever steal. Before you go, I want to ask you something. If you were Franklin, after hearing your own family planning to divide your estate while you were still alive, would you have stayed calm, gathered evidence, and let the truth come out? Or would you have confronted them the moment you realized what they were doing? And if you were Linda, at what point should she have chosen honesty over greed? Before the secret meetings, before the forged documents, or before she lost the trust of the man who loved her? Share your thoughts in the comments. I always enjoy reading what you think. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video and subscribe for more emotional family dramas, shocking betrayals, and inspiring stories where truth and justice prevail. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, greed may win for a moment, but the truth always finds its way home. The end.